Thanks for attending today's Oracle Digital Assistant Introduction Hands-on Workshop. I'm Jürgen Kress, your host and part of the Oracle Product Management team. Today's webinar is recorded. In case you missed one of our webcasts, on-demand recordings are available at Oracle Video Hub. For details, please see our monthly newsletters. This is a series of 4 webinars to introduce Oracle Digital Assistant, our chatbot solution. Oracle Digital Assistant is a platform to build custom bots. Additionally, we offer pre-built bots called skills for HCM, Service Cloud, and ERP. For on-premise applications like PeopleSoft, pre-built templates are available. In today's webinar, Grant will present best practices for conversational design. Good afternoon, Grant.
Good afternoon, Jürgen.
Thanks for joining. With us on the call is also Ruben Rodriguez. Hi, Ruben.
Hello, Jürgen. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your excellent hands-on trainings. And from the EMEA team, Martin de Grund. Hi, Martin.
Hi, Jürgen. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the call. And from our product management team, Martin Chavez. Thank you for joining, Martin.
Hi, Jürgen. Hi, everybody else. Hope we have a good training session today.
Let's get started. This is a series of 4 events. Martin Chavez and Martin de Grund started with Oracle Digital Assistant overview, including multiple demos. In part 2 and 3, Ruben teach the hands-on labs in Katacoda. Today, Grant will talk about best practices for chatbot design. As you learned to build a weather application, it's now time to build your own bot. How to build an awesome bot? Grant will present you today. Please feel free to continue to use the free trial to build your own solutions. Subscribe to the Digital Assistant channel for on-demand recordings like the whole webinar series and the latest news on Oracle Digital Assistant. We also publish the series at youtube.com/bit.ly/cloud update. With this short introduction, we would like to hand over to you, Grant Ronald, to show us how to build an awesome bot.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much, Jürgen, for organizing. Thanks, everybody, all of you who have attended over these past 4 sessions, and those of you who have made it to the end. As Jürgen said, really awesome. My name's Grant Ronald, and let me share my I'm part of the development team for Oracle Digital Assistant. And one of the things my team have been doing is helping customers, many customers, build digital assistants and conversational experiences. And in having had that journey over the past 6 or 7 years or so, we've had lots and lots of experience in what makes great bots and what makes pretty terrible bots as well. And what I wanted to do in this session over the next, 60 minutes, maybe more, is share with you some of those real important elements to think about when building conversational assistants. And what I'm also going to do is, because you guys have been playing with and asking questions to Artie, I want to show each of these kind of rules or guidance that we have. I'm going to flip out of PowerPoint and go into Digital Assistant and show how we developed some of those features and where we've implemented those in Artie as well. So, a little bit of, free form demo and stuff. We'll see what works and what doesn't work and what we can do. Okay, so that's me. That's my Twitter handle. Let's get started. Now, you guys, as myself, we've all been building, software for many years. And so why is conversational different from web apps? Oh, yes, there are many of the concepts which are the same, things like security and scalability and these elements. But we have a whole new difficulty or challenge with conversational interfaces, is that the only interface you have are the words that go back and forward between the user and the bot. And that is both its advantage and the challenge, because as we kind of, the light-hearted screenshot here shows, language is very complex and very ambiguous as well. Certainly English language, but most languages, we use metaphors and synonyms and similes and idioms to describe concepts where, if you look at the individual words, it just doesn't mean that. So in English we might say something's a piece of cake. Now, what does it mean? If we're looking at cake, then yes, that's a piece of cake. But how was your exam? How was your driving test? It was a piece of cake. And what's wonderful, and we might not go into it today, although we can if you want, is how we build multi-language bots, because it's not just the understanding of the phrases, but things like idioms change between languages and cultures as well. So, we might say a piece of cake, and the literal translation, I think in Romanian, is something like, it's like a flower in the ear. We have these very different concepts. So language is really difficult. That doesn't mean we can't build great conversation assistants, but we have to put in place a lot of guide rails and be aware of the impact of us not understanding language, and also the user not understanding what the bot says, because that itself can cause problems. So let's start right at the very beginning. And when I present this slide, I sometimes am reluctant to spend much time, because I think this is obvious, but we put it in because it's not obvious. And that is, before you start a conversational project, you've really got to design what you want out of this project. And the reason I say that is because we've seen a lot of customers and users go into conversational projects not really knowing what they wanted to achieve. Was the goal here to deflect customers from a call center? Maybe that's a good use case. Maybe it was just because you wanted to have a conversational interface because it was the latest cool technology. You've got to kind of decide, because in the example of the deflecting from a call center, one of our biggest customers in Oracle that we've talked about, a big parcel firm, they have a digital assistant in which its use cases is relatively narrow in that, where is my order? Now, there's not a huge element of conversational, deep technical things going on there, because really it just says, hey, I can help you with your order. What's your order number? Yes, it was delivered. But it has a real high value, because there are lots of people who can find out where their parcel is in a matter of 20, 30 seconds. So that has huge, huge value, and obviously at scale. There are other projects which are much more conversational and natural language processing and things, but maybe don't have that high business value. So you yourself have to decide, what is it we're aiming for? What success look like? And we have this idea. It's something that that Martin Jarvis has been running a lot of for us. It's what he calls CDX workshops, kind of conversational design workshops. And one of the first things we do is design what a conversational experience would like. What is it you want out of the effort you're about to put in building a digital assistant? How will you engage? What kind of questions will you ask? What if the bot doesn't understand? What if you don't give enough information? How should it get that information from you? What should happen if you do things wrong? What's the tone of voice of the bot? Is it very formal? Is it fun? All this kind of stuff is what we build out in these conversational design workshops, identifying the use cases, identifying what a conversation will look like, what information needs to come from the conversation, what you'll do with that, and then how you will respond and the type of essentially feeling you want the users to go away with. So, that's a really pretty important thing. And we do have, I'll show you some links at the end, slide decks on conversational design workshops. The other thing is, to the business, what is success? Is it the fact that you build this thing that 10,000 users a day come to, or is it the fact that you build this in front of your call center and it deals with 20 or 30% of calls that would normally be waiting in a queue for your call center? You decide, or the business decides for that. The other couple of points that are really important is the last two, which is the full life cycle. And this is something we're actually doing in Artie this week, is that having launched Artie officially, we're now spending most of the week going through the conversation logs to understand all the places where Artie failed. And Artie will fail quite a lot. That's the nature of any bot. So is the business buying into the fact that the day you deliver the project is not the day the project finishes? It's essentially the day a lot of the hard work starts, which is dealing with failure and going into this cycle of learning from your mistakes and training the bot. The bot does not get smarter unless you train it to be smarter. So there's that element of going through conversation logs, understanding what's been said, understanding what's not been said, understanding use cases that have not been covered, and building those into the next version of the bot as well. And of course, having mentioned that there are, conversational projects are a kind of new thing for many of us, there are new skills there as well. So this is not just a software project. There's a whole new raft of skills like conversational designers, which we'll talk a little bit later on, where they design what the back and forward, what the words are, how they deal with ambiguity, these kind of things as well. So starting off a digital assistant project, if you're doing one for real and you're going beyond the simple, order pizza examples, then have a think about what you really want to achieve as a business. What's the deliverables? What's the measurables? What's the targets you're aiming for? And get that right first time, or get that right and think about it, puts you off on kind of the best foot forward. Next element to talk about is the artificial intelligence, and I think we all noticed this, that a lot of news stories about artificial intelligence and robots taking over the world, and when they suddenly become almost human-like, and I think we're a long way from that in many respects. So there isn't just magic. There isn't a case of getting some data and your bot suddenly knows everything. You guys have built some basic bots in the last two sessions, but there's a lot more in training the bot to understand language, and it's not simply a case of throwing data at it. In the same way as if anyone's a database developer or a DBA, you'll know that there's a good architecture to partitioning and how you design a database, and there's a good architecture to how you design and train a chatbot as well. It's not just a case of throwing the data into the NLP. You need to design the intents so that they are, very distinct in what they're doing, hopefully not overlapping as well, and have a very clear sweet spot of what each intent is trying to do. And then you have to train those intents with good quality data for you to give an idea to the model of what this use case is. Now, I should say, the model does know about English language, or a number of languages, in fact. So you don't have to train it with every single variation of phrase, but you have to give it enough phrase that it gets the idea. So, for example, if I train my pizza or transportation bot with, I want to order a taxi, I want to order a yellow cab, can you get me a cab this evening? It will probably understand that if you say, can you get me an Uber, that is also a request for getting a taxi, even though you might not have specifically trained it with Uber, because the pre-trained models have an understanding of general terms, and that taxi, yellow cab, cab are in many ways synonymous with Uber and Lyft in that kind of context as well. So you need to have good, well-designed intents, well-trained intents, and just remember, the bot doesn't understand language, okay? It's doing a classification. You're saying these are the 10 things that this bot will know, and when you ask, or when someone asks the bot a question, it's a classification problem. It's not an understanding. It's simply saying, out of those 10, 15 intents that you have told me about, which one is it most likely to fall into? The fact that I say I want to order a pizza and it resolves to 100%, the bot doesn't recognize that, hey, Grant likes Italian food and Grant's hungry. It just knows that it's triggered that particular intent with a high level of classification. Now, when you are designing your intents, I suppose the clearest thing I try to give to people is ensure that your intents have a real clear sweet spot. And when I say a sweet spot, really make it clear that cancel pizza and order pizza. I mean, you and I know those are very different things, but there is quite a lot of similarity in the potential phrases that you would use. I would like to cancel my pizza. I would like to order my pizza. There's only one word difference in those, although it's an incredibly important word. And that's where you're training your bot. What you're doing is thinking, what is the sweet spot? What is the real key element of this intent? It's about ordering pizza. Therefore, I will ensure that I have the word order. I will have variations of that. I might have purchase. I want to purchase a pizza. I want to buy a pizza. I want a delivery of a pizza. All those phrases will help emphasize that it's not just the word order that's important, but it's the concept of ordering, because you're kind of strengthening that message with purchasing and buy and various other synonyms as well. And likewise for the cancel pizza, you may well have many of the words that are the same, but the key thing is I want to cancel my order, I want to stop my order, I want to whatever, again, other synonyms you might have there as well. Now, it's worth mentioning that the whole question around negation in language is a real challenge. You know, if I was to say I don't want to have my pizza order anymore, that's probably going to end up at order pizza. It'd be an interesting test to do, because again, I'll reference in English here. You know, the way a term is negated is not just the presence of one word like not or no, because we can have prefixes. I want to unorder my pizza. You know, not a perfect example, but you get the idea. So we can negate, and we can have double negation. I don't want to unorder my pizza, whatever you might use. So be aware that if you have examples where there's a negation, that may well become a little bit of a challenge. Now, one of the cool things that Oracle Digital Assistant will do is something called auto disambiguation. If, for example, I have my cancel pizza and order pizza intent, and I say something like, hey, pizza, please, or just pizza, what the model will likely do is say, well, look, that pretty much is, you know, even a human would struggle. What are you asking me? You're just saying pizza. Do you want to order pizza, or have you already got a pizza order? So you can set configuration parameters in ODA such that if two intents are above the threshold, but within a close enough margin of each other, the digital assistant will automatically disambiguate, i.e. it will put up a dialogue and say, hey, I wasn't quite sure what you wanted. Is it canceling pizza, or do you want to order a pizza? And that happens automatically. I'll show you that with Artie in a second. And the last thing here on this slide, again, I'm going to show you this in the demo, is the quality of the utterances that you have are critical. Okay. Now, in the demos, and I'm guilty of this when I do demos, I'll put in 3 or 4 phrases, you know, order pizza, I want pizza, get me a pizza, and then I'll run it and it kind of works. But in reality, and we have 2 training models in ODA. We have one called Trainer HT, one called Trainer TM. Now, HT is a quick trainer. TM takes longer, but it's a much deeper AI-driven trainer. And generally speaking, we would say you use Trainer TM, but it requires more data as well. So for Artie, for example, we started off with about 30 to 40 utterances per intent. Now, good quality utterances are critical. What makes a good quality utterance? Well, first of all, think of the different ways somebody might ask that question. And there is also different approaches people can have to the same intent. For example, let's say there's a password reset intent. I could explicitly say, I want to reset my password. But I could also imply by saying something like, I can't log into my account today. Now, I haven't said reset my password, but the implication is that that would probably trigger the flow to reset the password. So let's say we've got 2 different phrases. I want to reset my password, and I can't log into my email. What we would do then is create variations of each of those phrases, ensuring that we emphasize the keywords. I want to reset my password. I'd like to reset my credentials. I'd like to reset my logon. Would be examples where you're emphasizing that credentials, password, logon are all the same essence, although we're giving different words. That's the kind of do. And be careful of skewing. And what I mean by that is, if an extreme example, you were to take one intent and train it with utterances in which you always said, please. Please, can I have a pizza? Please order me a pizza. Please, I would like a pizza delivery. But the other intent for cancel, you don't train with the word please, just cancel pizza. Now, if I was to say something like, please cancel my pizza, I don't want it anymore, you may well find you get quite a leaning towards order pizza, because you've emphasized that please was an incredibly important word. Now, you and I know it's important in terms of politeness, but it's not important in the meaning of that. But the bot won't quite know that. So you've got to ensure that you don't accidentally skew with words or overtraining particular terms. For example, going back to the password example, if I only ever use the word password, I want to reset my password, I need a new password, get me a new password, then what I'm emphasizing is that the word password is super important, where it's not really, it's the concept that's important. So that's why we give variations. So let me just very briefly show you, how we've done some of this in Arty. And if I go here to one of my skills that we've got. So this in Arty, if you ask a question about intents or which training models, then this is the skill that takes over. And what you'll see here is for intents basics. So this here is about, if people ask an overview of, what is an intent? Can you tell me something about an intent? So, what is an intent? Then you go 100%, and I can ask, hopefully, tell me a little bit about intents. Okay, so we've got 100%, although I'm going to guess that that word or that phrase, of course, doesn't appear in that phrase at all, which is exactly what you want. But if we look at the training phrases, can you explain what an intent is? Can you give some basic instructions? Can you provide me? Can you tell me? Now, the first thing I'll say, I've got 60, and I've started off with 4 phrases that are can you. But I don't want to, can you is not such the important thing. So very quickly I change, but you'll see I'm still getting things about intents. And so how does intent? Explain how the bot categorizes. So help me with intent. How are intents built? So you can see that, again, I'm emphasizing thing about tell me how, can you, I'm going to real mix of things there, but we're all talking about intents and basics, and you'll probably see words about beginners or getting started. How would I create an intent? So let's see, create intent. There, how do you create an intent? How would I? Again, we don't want everything in the same personal pronoun. So again, I'm mixing it up because I don't want to inadvertently skew to say this is all about I. It's like it can be about you. How do we create intent? How would someone create an intent? So again, by mixing it up, what I'm doing is emphasizing that's create intent. And there I've got some plurals as well going on as well. So you can get an idea of the kind of mix that we do as well. You'll also see that I've got each intent, I've tried to get a very clear, using this description field, what each intent is for. And it's fair to say that we will refactor over time, because sometimes we'll bring in new intents and you'll find that they suddenly overlap with something we've got existing. The last thing I'll do is show you Arty working with auto disambiguation. So if I can try and get a phrase, and I think I found one, what is a digital assistant? then what we find is this phrase could be resolved with a very high probability to 2 different intents, product basics or digital assistant definition. Now, it just happens to be that either one of them will give a particular good answer, but it does give you this ability, as a human would do, that if you say something that, well, I'm pretty certain it's that, but I'm also pretty certain it could be this thing as well, then the easiest thing to do is present this disambiguation. And you can obviously tailor these strings, and what appears here is what is in the conversation name in the digital assistant as well. So you can name your intents with very developer-centric names here, and we've named them this way because we group types. These are all intents to do with general stuff, and these are intents to do about NLP. So that's our naming convention. But what we present to the user, should an auto disambiguation happen, is something that's much more user-centric, much more English-based, or language-based, I should say, because that can be multi-language. Okay, I touched on this in the last slide. Many paths to the same destination. What we mean is different intents might have the same outcome, and the perfect example, I think, was the log on. But let me give you another example here. People might state a problem, or they might state a solution. Like this, I said, I can't log into my account is a problem. I want to reset my password is essentially a solution. Yet it has the same thing, or it's doing the same thing. Now, you could have one intent in which you put these things together. That's absolutely fine. Or you might have 2 intents. One, it's trained with the explicit request to reset a password, or to reset a password, or another intent with the indication that they can't log into the account. Now, why would you do that? Well, it might, not necessarily, but it might make the NLP cleaner, because what it does do is each intent will be very clearly laser focused on, I'm all about people who can't log into the account, and the other one is all about, I'm all about people who ask to reset a password. The other reason that might be useful is you might have a slightly different reply, even though you often do the same thing. Okay, so if somebody says, I can't log into my account, you might say, oh, sorry to hear that, let's reset your password. Where if somebody said, how do I reset my password, you wouldn't say, sorry to hear that. You would say, sure, I can help with that, and then take them down the same path. So it might be an idea to look at partitioning intents into more granular, depending on the use case. Now, it's difficult to give you the hard and fast rule. We sometimes get the question, how many intents should I have? And probably one intent is too few, and 10,000 intents is too much. And there'll be something in the middle of that, which is probably the right answer. But in RT, certainly currently, each skill is about 20 to 30 intents split across 12 different skills. So we've got about 300 different intents split across skills. So that's a good idea. And the other example here is, for example, a returns policy. And again, by having different intents based on a returns policy, whether people are asking explicitly to return something, or because it doesn't fit, or because it's broken, maybe allows you to give slightly different answers, even though the returns process is exactly the same. The other advantage of splitting this up is that when you've been running your bot for a couple of weeks and you look at what are our most used use cases, you might find that, hey, we notice that lots of people are buying things that are broken, and we see that because the broken returns policy intent is being fired 80% of the time. Now that might lead you to decide, well, maybe there's a business problem, or we need to deal with that conversation in a much more efficient manner or something, because it's such a highly used conversation as well. So good chatbots come from good data. This is, probably the biggest problem we're seeing with many implementations is when we look at the training data, there's just not enough quality training data. And it's not just the volume, it really is the quality that's important. In fact, when we get involved in starting building bots, we'll often say, start with about 30 utterances for trainer TM, but don't go any more, because if you do have problems, it's easier to debug your models with only 30 utterances per intent than it is if they've got 300 utterances. So don't go off crazy and create, huge amounts of data and throw it into the model until you've got a good idea that with the general approach you're taking, it is working. Because the NLP is only as good as the data you train it with. Now, we would ideally say that real data is the best data that you can get to train the model, but there's a slight caveat to that. The first thing is, what is real data? You could maybe go to your call center conversational logs, but the way somebody speaks to an agent might be very different from how they speak to a bot. So that's not always exactly true. And the other things, you might not have enough quality of that. So what I tend to do, and again, we did this with Artie, is we crowdsource, and we have a feature in Digital Assistant called data manufacturing, which allows you to say, look, I'm going to build a bot with these use cases. Can you, as my typical user, give me 10 example phrases of how you might order a pizza or do whatever it is that your use case is? And then what we do is we generate, and we've got a paper on this that I can share at the end. We manually create utterances based on those seed phrases, and that gets us pretty quickly to our 40, 50, 60 utterances we need. Now, I say 40, 50, 60 utterances, even earlier I said you maybe need to start off with 30, but we advocate this idea of an 80-20 split. So when you create your utterances, take 80% of those and put them into the model to train the model. Keep 20% to test the model. Now, why do you do that? Well, it's super important to test your model because you want to make sure it's doing what you expect it to do, is the first thing. By using data that you're not trained the model with, that's the best type of data. Okay, if you take phrases that you've actually trained the model with, it's not quite as good a quality test. The other great thing about tests is it gives you this ability to do kind of what ifs. So one of the things that we often find when we're designing bots is, should I combine these two intents, or should I split this up, or should this go into a different skill, or what if I brought this intent in here? What would happen? Well, intents and NLPs are like a kind of multi-dimensional Jenga. You just need to move one thing and it can change how everything works. So by creating tests, what you can do is ensure that, hey, if I make this change or I try this out, changing this one intent will not break all the other intents or make them much worse. Now, we have a feature in Digital Assistant batch testing, which I'll show you in a minute, where you can have a spreadsheet of phrases and which intent those phrases should resolve to. And you can run those at any point and just quickly validate that your tests are in fact running as well. So aim for some good quality utterances. I would probably start with say a set of maybe 40 or 50 good quality utterances, good variations, but also emphasizing the sweet spot of the use case, and do that 80-20 split for testing. And then test, fix, repeat, and that goes on and on. Okay, so every time you harvest new data, do the same thing, but it's an ongoing process really with your bot. So let me show you how we've done this again in Artie. So I'm going to show you some of the tests that we've written in Artie. So I'm going to go to a different skill here, one called channels. And channels is the skill if you ask questions like, can I deploy my bot through an iPhone or on the website or any of those kind of things. So let's go try it out. batch, load. And here I have, now I've got two test files. So if I look at these, it's just a spreadsheet with two columns. The first column is the phrase, and the second column is what that should resolve to, what intent. So let me load this test first. I call this the in-domain test, because what it's doing is it's testing phrases resolved to the correct intent. So there's about 80 phrases, so let it run for a few more seconds. There we go. So we've got a kind of 85% pass rate there or something. So, so a phrase like, can you add skills to WhatsApp? It should have resolved to the webhook because we integrate with WhatsApp via something called a webhook, and that passed 100%, so that's perfect. I want to connect to Siri. That was a webhook, that's passed, that's great. Oh, in fact, is there a channel for Alexa? I'm going to guess that's also a webhook question. There you go, that's webhook, 100% perfect. Okay, so that's great. But here's a bunch of other tests that failed. Can I create a custom channel? So that should have gone to webhook, but it's gone to one of our others. So I've got to decide whether that in fact is a failure test. Yes, it's the test has failed, but let's see this one, channels for dummies, please. It should have gone to channel basics, but it's gone to this one here. Let's try and run that. So the phrase was channels for dummies. So that test failed. Let me test it here. Channels for dummies. Now, what's interesting here is channels for dummies. Here's a list of built-in channels. Please choose one, and you can learn more about it. So web, and it's given me an answer. So what's interesting about this, and it's kind of something not unique, but particular to FAQ styles of bots, is that there could be more than one way of answering a question. So whilst that wasn't the question the test expected, it's actually a reasonable answer. So, you know, I could fix the test, or I could just decide that, yeah, okay, that's fine. The other thing is we're not aiming for 100% here, because as soon as we get to 100%, we need to raise the bar and get more tests and get more failures in effect, because what we're trying to do is ensure that the bot is not getting any worse, or is in fact improving. So that's what I called my in-domain test. I'm testing that a particular phrase resolves to a specific intent. But there's another style of test, and I know this from looking through the logs. Many of you have been, or some people at least, have been in the kindest way spamming Artie. You've been asking questions that are completely out of domain, or kind of, you know, fun trick questions, and that's absolutely fine as well. But I want to test those. So I have another test script, which is slightly different. Well, it's the same. It's two columns with a phrase and the intent it should resolve to. But in this case, the intent that it should resolve to is the unresolved intent. Okay, so you might be aware that when you've tested, if your bot didn't understand something, that was called unresolved. So what we want to do here is check that essentially spam phrases like, you know, what a dark web we weave is obviously got nothing to do with you know, digital assistant and Artie, but because it's got words like web in it, it might confuse the bot, and it might resolve to an intent which it shouldn't be doing. And that's what these 8 failures are doing. You know, this skill is all about channels. So if I say, can you tell me what's on channel 7, or change the channel on the TV, that should be unresolved, but it's resolving at 81% to built-in channels. Now, ideally, what we want to do is ensure that the bot says, no, I'm sorry, that's not something I can do. at the moment that test or that phrase will come up with an answer which is not right. So we're also trying to ensure that we can make these tests, more of these tests pass at the moment as well. So different styles of testing. You're not just testing at things resolving, but you're also testing things that don't resolve as well. Now, the last thing I'll show you is something we do with RT, which is really extreme, but it's kind of interesting to show the potential level you can test bots at. I showed you 2 tests there, which were about 100 tests each. We have created for each skill, we have our domain tests, of which there's about 100 here, you can see. We have our out of domain tests, again, about 100 or so, some more. But we also have tests where we have essentially about 400 random phrases. And we also have these generated tests. And what these generated tests are, all of the tests from, for example, channels, all these skills here, all of the tests and all of the utterances from these skills, we put into one test and run it against the common skill to make sure that the common skill doesn't understand those things or doesn't grab those. Because if you ask a question for the go-to-market skill, you don't want it to be grabbed by the HCM skill by accident. Okay, so we're making sure that each skill doesn't step on another skill's toes. So we generate these combinations of skills. Here you got about 12,000 tests. And what that does is it gives us a bunch of tests, which is in total about 180,000 tests. Now, as I said, that's pretty extreme, and I don't know anyone else that's doing as much testing. But what it does do is, for RT and as a way of validating our platform, it's an incredible way of showing that whenever we release RT, we can check the validation of the test and making sure it's getting no worse or no better, whatever it might be. And also when the platform changes, we get new releases of ODA. And here you can see an example. So for RT 7.0, which is the version that's out now, here's our pass rates, and you can see that in our previous version, our kind of beta version, we have got a few percentage points difference. That one skill was a little bit better. That was 1% down, but we can live with that. What we did was with our other tests, we were getting some slight improvements. And we can do some what if analysis. Look at these, we've got 89% pass rate, 70%. What if we change our threshold to 85 or 0.85? Then we see that we're going to drop some of these tests, but more of these tests are passing. That's because we're being much more stringent with the bot. The bot is being much more precise in when it will say something is right. And you can take this to the extreme. If we were to put this at 99% confidence threshold, you would see that our out of domain test or spam phrases would almost exclusively pass because we're being really tight on what is allowed to pass. But certainly in some of these skills, you'd see quite a significant drop in how it would be performing over its previous version. So this allows us to do a little bit of kind of what if analysis. Okay, hopefully you're getting lots of questions answered here as well. We'll stop in a few minutes. A couple of more slides. When you're designing conversational interfaces, we often see this where people will say, oh, I need to design a conversation and it's got to get these 10 pieces of data so that the bot says, can you give me this? Can you give me this? Can you give me this? And it's like you're designing a conversation of a web form. If you're doing that, then you're off to a bad start because this is a conversation, it's not a form. Now that doesn't mean you still need to collect those 10 pieces of data, but maybe you can do it in a different way. For example, something our own expenses do is that rather than saying I want to create an expense and then have to be prompted to say how much, where it was, what date, how many people were there, what was the type of expense, etc. You could scan a receipt. You can upload a receipt and it can use something like optical character recognition to say, well, actually, I see that this receipt is for $20 at Starbucks on the 5th of January in San Francisco on a particular street. So, and that way the bot just then needs to say, hey, is this information correct? Yes. And then that's it, done. So think about how you might have a conversation about something. How would you do this with if you had an assistant sit next to you rather than a website? And if you find your bot doing things like press 1 to do this, press 2 for this, or here's the buttons that I can do, you've got to be thinking, is this a conversation? Okay. Think about the use cases like the first slide. What's a really great use case? I want to book vacation. Can I book vacation? I want to book 5 days off starting on Monday. That's it. That's a conversation, end and done. We don't want to fill in fields and these kind of things. So have a think about how you collect information. Don't design it like a web form. Can you default information based on what you know about the user or the context of the conversation? And could the information be captured in a different way, like image capturing or location information from a phone, those kind of things, or voice as well, which is something we can support now quite conveniently. So the next thing is about voice and personality, and I hope some of you recognize Winston Churchill, who I chose because he had an incredibly distinctive voice, and you've got to remember that the only kind of brand that you have with your digital assistant is the voice, is the tone of voice that you have. So think about the personality of your bot. And we often see this where, and with the greatest respect, I'll say I'm a bot developer myself, is that developers might not always be the best person to come up with the words that the bot says. There's a certain crafting and niceness and politeness or brand that goes with it that might not be in the developer's sweet spot. So think about, how can you make this engaging and interesting and not very formal? I used this phrase before, where bots that I've seen that sound like a Victorian grandfather, very stiff and formal and not very enjoyable. So think about the persona. Is it professional? Is it fun? You'll notice we've picked quite a distinct persona for Artie, and we did that because we wanted to have fun with it. We wanted to do something a little bit left field and a bit kind of weird and funky. So that's why Artie's got this very robotic personality, and I'll talk a little bit of that in a second. We actually built a backstory for Artie. I'll show you this, that we, myself and Martin and Vincent, who was one of the developers, were out in the Netherlands just before the COVID pandemic struck, and we come up with the idea of Artie, and we sat over dinner and kind of scoped out what was the personality we're going to have and why, and what the conversation, what type of things Artie would say, and how would Artie deal with humor, how would Artie deal with swearing, how would Artie deal with when Artie got something wrong, and that's where we kind of come up with this brand. And of course you have a different brand. I mean, think of companies like British Airways versus Virgin Atlantic, very different styles of brand, and I could imagine their tone of voice being quite distinct in those as well. I'll talk about this in some later slides about how you craft words, giving positive, welcome introduction, and be careful, because although you might not realize it, your words might be slightly offensive. You neglected to supply. If I asked Martin to, can you give me the phone number of Jürgen because I haven't got it, and I write it down wrong and I phone and it's somebody else that picks up the phone, I'm not going to go back to Martin and say, you got the wrong number. You neglected to supply me the right number. No, it says, hey, I don't think I wrote that number down. I would maybe take responsibility rather than offend and you put the blame on somebody else, even though it might have been Martin's fault. So think about the words that you use and how you craft those. So this actually here is, and I don't show many people this, but this is the character profile that we wrote for Artie. So, we came up with a background. Artie's a digital assistant robot. We decided, because I think it's important, that Artie is not aware of gender, but we would refer to Artie as a he. things like the way Artie would speak would not use contractions, so would say what is, not what's, or would say let us, not let's, these kind of things. And we come up with, what's the strengths of Artie? Very logical, very precise, always ready to help, very polite, non-confrontational. And the weaknesses. And we kind of embraced the fact that there are difficulties with language. Things like humor and sarcasm are something that a digital assistant will struggle with. So we thought, rather than try to deal with those as problems, let's embrace it. Let's embrace it with a personality. Like Artie, if you try to be sarcastic to Artie won't get it. And that's part of Artie's personality. But really, it's the platform that can't get humor and sarcasm, these kind of things as well. And we come up with sample sentences. And again, there was a little bit of a kind of what I'd like to think of smart thinking about why we did this. Artie, we give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room in answers by saying, I believe you're referring to it. So, we're not saying, hey, this is a definite answer. We're trying to indicate that even if we get it wrong, we've used words that are maybe showing that, hey, we weren't maybe that definite in the first place. But of course, if we have answered with the correct answer, then you're just going to think Artie's being polite by saying, I believe you're referring to a particular thing as well. So, and then we come up with ideas about, how Artie will deal with, humor or people swearing and these kind of things. And again, our approach was not to ignore swearing, but also not to confront it. I believe I'm not familiar with that type of contemporary language. And why that's also important is we didn't want to accuse the user of swearing in case we misunderstood. If the user said, hell, you're amazing, and Artie said, don't swear at me, that would be quite rude. So again, we're thinking of the use case and trying to give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room in terms of, if we didn't quite get it right, then we're not going to offend or cause any sort of bad engagement. So that's the kind of the bot personality. And going back to Artie for a second, if we start up Artie, again, how we make Artie engaging personality wise, we probably spent longer on the icons than anything else, but Artie hopefully brings you in here. We start Artie, and immediately Artie comes up with a greeting. One of the things that we noticed with other customers is that by default, a bot does nothing until you start the conversation. So by default, what would normally happen is you'd open a window and it's up to you to start typing. Now, what a number of customers has told us is that they recognize from logs that users would sit there going, I don't know what to do. They literally were not sure. So in the Web SDK, when we have an event that when the chatbot is opened, we inject a hello message in the background. So in the background, Artie has actually, or the Web SDK has sent hello as if I've typed it in. And Artie doesn't actually know it, it's come automatically. So Artie thinks you've said hello. So that's the way we've kind of faked the start of the conversation. But what it does do is Artie makes it clear, a welcome, salutations, I am Artie. If it gives me an indication of your help functionality and how may I assist you in your digital assistant learning. So it doesn't just say, what do you want to know? Because what I would want to know is, what's the lottery results for Saturday would be what I really want to know. But I've got to give an indication of the kind of things I can help with. The other thing I'll show you is salutations, I am Artie. Let's just try running Artie again. Slightly different messages that time. Okay, what we do, hopefully it will show each time, is we randomize a lot of our responses. There you go, that was a different one this time. And the idea there is because we're trying to, whenever you're using the bot, it's kind of quite dull if the bot is just saying the same things every time. So we have, for many of the engagements, we have multiple strings, and that's to give a much more kind of human type of, there you go, there's got a different introduction there. So there's about 3 or 4 of each of these messages that will randomize that we choose as well. And I mentioned about help. We'll talk a little bit more about help in a bit. So that's bot personality. However, and I think the whole industry agrees in this, you don't try to make your bot human. By all means, you give it human-like qualities, but you're not. There's very few bots that I think really you're aiming at the Turing test, that you could never tell if it's a human or bot. We're not trying to fool the users, because you'll do a bad job of it, to be honest with you. So if people know it's a bot, maybe expectations are set accordingly. So you're not being human, but use human-like attributes. Anthropomorphism, I think, is the phrase for this. So in human-human conversations, unlike this conversation where I'm the only one talking, we keep messages short and we have a back and forward. So you'll notice in RT, we try to keep to this rule that any responses would be about the size of a tweet. Now, that's a little bit difficult, so we're trying to get quite a lot of technical information, but that's why we have this README button. Our initial responses, we try to keep to about 200 odd characters, 250 characters, before we show any more. We vary responses, as you've just seen, because it's very dull. If I didn't understand, please try again. I didn't understand, please try again. I didn't understand, please try again. It's very dull. So we vary responses. We have strategies when the conversation gets stuck. So if I was to ask something like, and let's see if we can get RT to fail here. If I say something like, what is a okay, so Art is going to help me. Here are a list of channels. Which one would you like to choose? Let me see if I can do something that's not going to understand. So rather than typing in Facebook, I do Facebooky. It's actually understood that as something else. That's an interesting one. Let me try something else. It's not, unfortunately, taking those phrases as something else. Let me try one thing else. Okay, well that it works in a way, because what I've done is I've put a number of invalid answers in there, and it's kind of realized that rather than keep going round and asking you the same thing, well, let's start again. Let's essentially start again. And so that's what we want to do, because in situations like that, we have a limit set that will only ask 3 times. Then it will error out. So don't lock people into kind of error conditions as well. So other things, disclosing information as you detect the user stuck at a step. So when you're stuck, rather than just giving the same errors, you might give a little bit more information that will help them, choose the right option as well. Don't be afraid to verify understanding. That's the disambiguation. And there's other things like reflective listening. So that's kind of indicating you've understood something. So Artie might say, I see you're interested in channels, and that indicates that it's been understood. So that's kind of that reflective listening. And the other thing is that typing indicator, which is pretty important, because when we're responding with multiple pieces of information, then what it will do is, and I'm trying to think of a good example, how do I connect to Service Cloud? See, the little typing indicator there gives us a kind of, it's like think time. It's like reality rather than just banging something back straight away. But I think when we see multiple answers, what built-in channels, there we go. So we're seeing that, again, it's helping the personality by giving the arty personality a bit of typing indicator, then giving the next thing down there as well. So it's a little more natural. Last thing, we've had a little bit of fun with arty's personality, but be careful of empathy and humor, because it could be that it's misunderstood. And if you're trying to be funny and something's actually quite a serious problem, I think the example we had with a workshop with Martin Jarvis was a flower ordering bot, which was incredibly happy to order flowers for you. So it said, I'm the flower ordering bot. How can I help you today? I'd like to order, 12 white lilies. Fantastic. Well, when can we order those for? It would be tomorrow. Wonderful. What's the occasion? It's my wife's funeral. Superb. I'll get those to you. That was not appropriate in that example. So, be careful of where you use it. And of course, humor doesn't necessarily transfer across cultures as well. So things to be careful of. Now, this is my favorite topic is small talk. One of the things Artie will do is we've got a skill which will deal with about 10 or 15 varying topics of what we call small talk, chit chat. So if you swear, or if you flirt, or if you ask about the weather, or football, or sports, or these kind of off topics, then Artie will deal with that. But there are also other small talk which I kind of call conversational markers. People might say great, or they might say thanks. And what you don't want is the bot to say, I don't understand, if you say thanks to something. So we try to deal with those kind of things. There's also other conversational markers where people might say things like, hey, I've got another question for you, or can I ask you one thing more? Or here's another thing I'd like to know about. So if you can deal with those, what it does is it makes your bot look smarter. Because you want to minimize the amount of time the bot says, I don't understand. And people do small talk to bots. I think probably, without doubt, the most commonly used skill in Artie is the common skill, although it does handle the introduction as well. But the things like you're helping, this isn't helping, those kind of things are also things that people are saying to the bot. And it does have a purpose. I mean, it's not just for fun that we deal with questions about sport and weather, but it does deal with things like handling frustrations. People swearing might not just be they're spamming the bot, but because they're frustrated. And if they're frustrated, you might decide, look, I would, rather than chastise you, you might say, if I'm not able to help you, maybe I can transfer you to one of our human agents and deal with it that way. Also, things like people might be asking the bot because they're not sure what to do. So they might, rather than say help, they might say, what do you want me to do? What can you do? What things can I ask you? And rather than saying don't understand, deal with those as a help as well. So it's all about making the bot look intelligent, but there are real use cases as to why, at least the use cases like asking for help, dealing with swearing, or those kind of things are useful, because they do have an influence in how the bot performs and how people are using it. So, and one thing we try to do is, like, for a joke, again, let's go back and ask Artie for a joke. If I say, tell me a joke, you'll see what we've done is humorous anecdotes are not a feature of which my neural circuits have been programmed. That's the Artie personality. But then we get it back on track. Please ask me your most pressing digital assistance. Or if I ask, what is the weather like today? I'm currently up, waiting. And in fact, I think if we try this a few times, we might try some of the there you got some different answers, but some of them will specifically say, it's a great day for answering questions about digital assistants. So again, we're trying to manage the conversation back to where it should be, rather than just leaving it open-ended. Okay, so this is one of the things we're trying to do here, is not simply answer the question like, hey, the weather's sunny, and then leave it open. Well, it's sunny, but how may I assist you? How we can get back to learning about digital assistant. And of course, I could maybe make that message much more kind of linked in with this. Okay, enough about weather. How can I assist you with your digital assistant learning? That kind of thing as well. Okay, so we've got small talk. We're into the final straight, and this is what I call, language smarts. There are some times, and we do this as humans, although you might not recognize it. If you're at a party and somebody says something, introduces you, and you don't quite catch their name, what you might do is use a technique in which you avoid their name. So if someone else comes along and says, "Oh, who this? Oh, this is a friend I've just met." Yeah, I can't remember their name, but you'll say something like that. So you'll try to avoid the problem by using good conversational techniques. So that's things like asking for clarification or reflecting the things you've understood, but maybe clarifying the things you haven't understood. Other things like very long input. One of the things that usually people are very concise with bots. But if you were to get a very long input, then what you might decide to do is, rather than try to classify that, is to say, well, look, if I get any input that's over 700 characters, I will respond by saying something like, wow, that's a lot of information. Could you maybe be more concise? Rather than failing the validation, saying I didn't understand you. At least we're being a little bit smarter by saying, well, I didn't understand you because it was a very long input. It's okay to ask for clarification. And again, this is, the example I've got here is, if I ordered flowers and I phone up the shop to say, hey, I've ordered these flowers on Monday and they've not been, they were supposed to be delivered on Tuesday and now it's Wednesday, they've not arrived. Is that a complaint, or is that checking the status of the order? It could deal with it both, and it's not quite clear. So maybe saying to the user, absolutely, I can help you with that. And in fact, that what we'd say in the next bullet point is there where I'm not sure, and rather than just saying, what do you want to do? Do you want to complain, or do you want order delivery? You could indicate with a message that you've understood, I'm sorry to hear that, let me deal with that for you. And then we give the disambiguation. So again, it's, again, I think we're probably, in this world of Zoom, we've probably all found ourselves in a meeting daydreaming, and somebody says, so Grant, what do you think, A or B? And you'll go, and rather than saying, I wasn't listening, you might go, yeah, that's a really good question. I've been thinking quite a lot about A, but actually, what do you think? Or what would your summary be? And you just try to kind of blag the fact that you haven't completely understood the question. So it's something we all do. And if you can think about the same things for bots, it will make them deal with problems in a more human manner, rather than just see they're saying you don't understand, or saying, look, these are the two options. Last couple of slides here. This, for those you don't know, is Donald Rumsfeld, who kind of famously said about there's the things we know, there's the things we know we don't know, and there's the things we don't know we don't know. And this is kind of a bit true for bots, because you know what use cases the bot should handle, but you may also know of use cases you're likely to be asked that the bot shouldn't handle. And the example I give here is, let's imagine we've got a banking bot, and the banking bot's responsibility is to transfer money between your accounts, simple things. But if somebody says, I want to buy 500 Oracle stock, rather than the bot saying, sorry, I don't understand, that's not one of my 5 use cases. If you think the bot could be asked that, even though you don't want to do that, have an intent for it, at least understand that you've been asked that question, and then respond, yeah, I would love to, but I don't actually do stock trading, or here's a link to do stock trading from our website. So think of your use cases that you want the bot to cover, but also if you think there are other things the bot is likely to be asked, rather than I don't understand what those things are, have an intent, deal with it, even though you're not actually doing that as well. It's a more precise handling of failure. So that's the kind of the things you know you don't know, deal with them if you can. Help. This is something that's really important for Artie. As you see, Artie starts off and indicates any problems. You can always ask for help, in quotes, help. So we're giving you an indication that at any point, just say help or something like help. We also try to give you a hint of what's expected. So rather than just a blinking cursor or a kind of box waiting for you, I'll give you an idea of the kind of things I'm expecting. Ask me a question about digital assistants, rather than just saying, hey, I'm Artie, ask me a question. I'm trying to give you a hint of what's expected next. Or if something goes wrong, if this, I haven't found an article, but I've done some searches. If this was helpful, then, or if this wasn't helpful, let me know and I will tell my developers. So I'm trying to give you guidance on the kind of things you can do at various steps as well. And that includes things like a get out. And again, I'll really briefly go back to Artie here, that you'll notice if I go to here, that we always give an option when we give a list, which is to quit out the list. Because the default functionality is in Digital Assistant, as I present you a list of options, you have to select one of those options before we can carry on. And of course, we don't want to force the user to, click things that they don't want to see. If this is taking them down the wrong conversation at any point, they can just say, hey, I don't want that. And Artie will confirm that, hey, I've wiped that question from my circuits. Probably the biggest use case, though, for bots is in the environment of call centers where the chatbot fronts. So agent handover is a really important feature that Oracle Digital Assistant does particularly well. We have a very simple built-in feature that you can hand off the conversation from the bot to a call center, handing off all the existing conversations. So at any point, if you want to speak to a human, the difference in Artie, we don't have this integration with a call center yet, but if I was to say, I want to speak to a real person, then what we're doing in Artie is sending you off to the help community, where you can post any question, you'll get real humans looking at it. But equally, that could have, if we were integrated with a call center, say, okay, I'm going to connect you to a call center. The next available agent will be 2 minutes time or something. Okay, we're definitely on the last couple of slides here. I call this limit the surface area of errors. Try to prevent people getting things wrong. That's by telling them, guide them what's expected. When you give them an option or you're asking for input, give them a hint to what's expected here as well. Guide them back when they get things wrong to the happy path. Always give indications of either I didn't understand that, or that's not one of the options I can do, or but here are the options. And something that, again, built into the platform on things like our entities, you can define multiple prompts so that you can give extra information as people maybe get things wrong. You give more information as well, so you're helping guide them into the right answers. You can add validation. So if I was to say, I want to order a pizza, and it says, sure, what time? And I say, midnight. Then rather than going through the whole pizza ordering process and then say, oh, the shop's closed, we can capture at the point I say midnight, we can validate that data and say, no, we close at 11 o'clock. Our last order's at 11 o'clock as well. Avoid open-ended questions. So in the pizza example, do you want anything else? And my kind of facetious answer to that is yes, a big house in the country. But of course, that's not what the pizza ordering bot is going to give me. So what it should do is, would you like anything else, like drinks, dips, or cookies? And then somebody could say, yeah, I'd like some cookies, please. So at least we know what is available, what are the options. And of course, you could give quick reply buttons or carousels to make it easy as well, so that a definitive list of options. Now, one thing that I think is pretty important is when you do give people a list of options, especially transactional things like, transferring money, be careful with yes or no answers. I tend to want to avoid yes or no. And the reason is yes or no requires you to have understood what you're yesing and knowing to, which people don't often read. They just think, oh, I'm assuming you're telling me this, and yes, that's what I want, when actually that wasn't what you were saying. So what I would rather do is have something which is on a button, rather than saying yes or no, something that's indicative of the action of pressing that button. So you might say, yes, transfer the money, or no, let's forget the transfer for now. Okay, that way it's making it very clear that yes is transferring money, rather than having to, link up the yes with the question or the response that you're yesing to as well. We've seen this with Artie. We know this is the case with any bots, is that people will do and say things you never imagined, and it will fail. Artie will fail lots of times with the best intentions. And I will say, Artie has a very tough job because, I say, it's a development domain. You can ask anything, and of course, you could get people asking, hey, have you got a use case, or have you got some code that shows me how to do X, Y, and Z? Well, crikey, how could we have envisaged you might ask those questions? So we've got a very tough choice, and we know that Artie will get things wrong, but it's how we deal with it. So fail gracefully. I'm not saying that people will deliberately say, you're an idiot, Mr. User or Miss User, for saying that, but the words you choose might imply something like, invalid order ID. I hate that. I mean, that's straight from a database, invalid order ID. And that's kind of indicating to the user that you got it wrong. Whereas it might be better to say, I can't seem to find an order with that order number. Now that kind of says the bot is taking responsibility. And then the next thing would say, can you try entering the order number again? So again, we're giving the next clear indication of what the next step is as well. When you fail, sometimes it's a chance to enforce the bot personality. Again, let's see what Artie does if we get something wrong. If I say something to Artie like, I don't know, sausage. So and then let's do. So, we're trying to, Artie saying, I believe I failed to adequately understand your question, and for that I apologize. So, it's taking responsibility. It's trying to deal with it without being too accusing, and as I say, so it's playing up to the personality as well, because I've engaged my development team to apply the appropriate fix to my language models during the next upgraded. So okay, I'm not saying it's the funniest joke in the world, but we're playing up to the personality that the Artie as an Android or a robotic device is needing to be upgraded in order to answer those questions a little bit better next time. So it's playing up to the personality of the digital assistant as well. And try to give the user options to get back on track. So when it's not understood something, give an indication of what went wrong and what kind of things you're expecting. And also, it's one of the things I know that we've got, one of the error messages in Artie is that if you come to the third time of not getting something right, it will say, let's try one more time. So it's letting you know how many times you've got to try and what will happen if you don't try. It might be, let's try one more time, or I'll pass the call off to one of my human colleagues as well. And something else that we put in kind of last minute in RT, but there's a number of ways we can reset the conversation. So if you say something like, I don't know, let's see if, so RT will, if you're in the middle of some conversation that you don't want to be in, RT can exit out there. We also added this button here that allows us to completely end the conversation and reset everything as well. So you can customize the Web SDK to do some cool stuff as well. If for example, here we've got our help button up here as well, so people can ask help about RT at any point as well. And this is default functionality within the digital assistant as well, so we didn't have to write that stuff ourselves. Okay, well, I think we have reached the end of the presentation part there. Everything that we have in terms of documentation, etc., is on this page here, bit.ly.oda. And just to give you a very quick tour, if I go to ODA doc, if you go to here, learning, here's all our slide decks. This is the presentation I'm giving here is a kind of version of this one here, but I talked in the beginning about how to start conversational projects and what conversational design's about. And then we've got all of our PowerPoints that go through all the stuff Ruben's talked about, you know, skills, entities, building conversation flow, Apache free marker, backend integration, custom components, and anything in this italics is in fact a tutorial or hands-on that you can practice as well. There's also tutorials here that we have that you can go to, and video tutorials. Frank and the team is fantastic at showing these 2-minute tech tips, which are pretty good. And our blog is Oracle Blog Tech Exchange. Okay, so there's some great stuff on the blog as well. There we go. The blog tends to be quite kind of some advanced deep dive stuff, but there's great content on there as well. And of course, ultimately, you can always ask Artie if you want to get a piece of information. And one of the things, last thing I'll show you with Artie is that we can search the blogs as well. So if I say, you know, let's try something. How does the NLP work? Do you have more on this? There we go. Artie goes out and searches our blogs and our documentation for articles. And you can also explicitly say, this is something we've been working on. It's not perfect, but if you were to say something like, let's see if it works, search tech exchange for utterance best practices, fingers crossed. There we go. So we've actually brought back the Tech Exchange article that I think Brad was talking about, or it was partitioning skills, that was it. But anyway, we've got one on how to write really good utterances that I talked about as well. So there you go. That in a very large nutshell is how you go about trying to build really good digital assistants.
So thank you everybody for attending the series of 4 webinars. If you would like to become a certified Oracle Digital Assistant expert, we offer a free sales and pre-sales certification. So please make sure you check Competency Center, and please take a look at the implementation exam, which is available via Pearson VUE. For questions, you can contact our collaboration platform, Oracle Customer Connect. There you can start a conversation, you can share your knowledge, and you can engage with the team and our experts. And please also feel free to submit innovations, as you can earn badges. In case you would like to find out who are the implementation experts and companies who have implemented it successful and can support your customer project, please visit partner-finder.oracle.com and search for Digital Assistant. At the Cloud Marketplace, you can find pre-built chatbots like the EDA solution from the Infancy team, which is a digital assistants for a campus solution to support students. In case you have developed a template or a pre-built bot, please let us know. We are happy to promote it. To learn more, we just published our digital assistant customer newsletter. So make sure you read it. If you have content that you would like to share, please let us know. We are always looking to highlight success stories, and maybe in the next newsletter, yours is included. For partners, we published a developer partner community newsletter with all the digital assistant content, plus more information about developer tools and application development. Please subscribe. So to summarize, for more information, you can visit the Digital Assistant website and make use of the documentation and RT. All sessions have been recorded and are available at the Oracle Video Hub at tinyurl.com/watchoda-video, including the hands-on trainings from Ruben, which are published at Katakoda. You can visit katakoda/r/sandrot for the hands-on step-by-step training course. Please post your questions at Cloud Customer Connect and subscribe to our customer and partner newsletter. Thank you, Grant, for the excellent presentation today. Thank you, everybody, for attending the 4 series seminar. So we spent 4 days within 2 weeks. We started with the nice overview by Martijn and Martin, and then Ruben did run the 2 days of the hands-on training, and we concluded today with the best practice part. Ruben, anything you would like to add from your side?
So not much. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and I hope you enjoyed the training, and see you next time.
Martin, anything from your side?
Well, just again, thanks to Ruben, because Ruben obviously is not from Oracle, he's from Avantic, really important partner for us. So we're just delighted that he was able to dedicate as much time and effort as he's done into some excellent training. And I hope everybody who attended thought so too.
Martijn de Grond, any news from the Netherlands?
From the Netherlands, I thought also today was really important, right? I mean, building bots is definitely also thinking about the design, and you know, I see a lot of projects that improve if they do that really well. So really pleased to have that really covered very in depth. And I would like to add that if there's anyone who have specific questions or busy with a project and want to know the commercials on it, or want to work out better the business case, they can always reach out to me, and I can create a team to help out in those accounts. So if you're looking for someone to help in those accounts at your projects from the start, then let me know. Just drop me a note, and we'll help you out.
Grant, any last words from RT?
RT actually has a default voice of your browser. One of the crazy things we're looking at is whether we can create a fully functioning avatar that is the face of RT as well. You know, those kind of fun things we're trying as well. But you know, one major feature of RT that we know we haven't implemented, but we're going to, which is a feedback mechanism. And you know, again, either on Twitter or through email, if you've got any great ideas on how we could improve RT, you know, please let us know, because you know, you guys are seeing it with the fresh eyes. We've been working on this for over a year, although not full time. So it would be great to hear the kind of things you expect, or functionality you would appreciate to see that. So yeah, thanks for your efforts in testing RT. About 500 of you each day, or 500 conversations a day we've been having with RT. So I'm pretty happy at that.
So thank you very much for attending this seminar series. Please complete the feedback survey. In case you like the training, please let us know via Twitter or via LinkedIn. Thank you for attending the hands-on material and workshop, and thank you to the trainer team. In total, we had more than 1,000 attendees. That's awesome, and we are looking forward to grow the Oracle Digital Assistant business together with you, and thanks for attending.